Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 19th Hole Live, a mishmash of drinking and talking about golf. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the Olympics. We've got the Olympic golf competition coming up, and I mean, it's not great, but it's the Olympics, and it's a reason for us to get together and drink and talk about golf. We're also going to be, a couple of us are drinking tequila. One other person might be pushing a certain beer that a lot of people seem to like that I don't know that I've ever had. So tonight with us, we have our normal everyday co-host, Mr. Connor Coughlin. Connor, how are you?
Good, Nate. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Glad to be here. And then we have another special guest host, Mr. Bo McBrayer. Bo, how are you tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic. It's Tuesday. I just got off work. Everything's great.
Yep. You all probably know Bo from Chalk Blocked and from Hot Box Batch, which is the best hot sauce on the freaking planet. It's why I wear this hat on every single stream I do, because y'all need to be buying it. And we actually have kind of a special announcement tonight. Pretty important for In Between Media. We are very excited to announce that Mr. Bo McBrayer, will be joining our team full time. And we could not be more excited. Cheers.
I'm excited.
Man.
Cheers.
Dude, I'm just going to say, I just want to say, I'm very excited to have you on board. You are one of my favorite people in this space, in this community, in this industry. And to get to work with you is just like an absolute honor. And I'm so excited.
Yeah, same here. I had an absolute blast with you, man. So pumped to have you.
Yeah, feelings mutual, guys. I mean, this show is, I felt like from the time I started watching the show and started lurking in the comments thread, I was in the chat all the time, the first couple episodes. And because I felt like this was my kind of show anyway for consumption. But I mean, if I'm free on a Tuesday night and you guys are saying that I can be part of the show that I love so much, it's a no-brainer. It's really cool because I mean, just the IBT brand as well as one of my favorites of all time, because I already saw myself as kind of cut from that same cloth where it's lifestyle, it's everything that we do as adult human beings. And then there's always fantasy sports alongside it. And that, I mean, that's me, that's my life. That's how I live my life every day. And so when I can read and ingest your guys' content, I was like, I already feel like I'm part of this team, even if I don't contribute to them. And so now that I'm going to be contributing, it's like, you guys better buckle up because Bo's coming.
Let's ride him. Let's do it. You're a Cowboys fan, so I feel like that was appropriate. And I won't hold that against you for now, at least.
Okay. Hey, can't always be right, man.
I haven't been right since I was 9 years old. Let's just say that.
I think we all kind of feel that way, man. So I think we're going to get into the drinking portion, and we have another special guest joining us from In Between Media, the one and only Elliot Hicks. Sir, how are you tonight?
Doing well. Glad to come on and talk some beverages with you guys here for a few minutes.
Well, yeah, man, thanks for jumping in. The reason that we brought you on actually is, as Connor showed, he's drinking Busch Light. You had a kind of a really cool experience regarding Busch Light recently, and it's not getting blackout drunk, but it's like way more fun than that even. Do you want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it certainly was a pretty good time. So, of course, Busch Light Apple, you know, it was a limited stock beer last summer. You know, people went crazy over it because it's awesome. You know, normally I'm not a big beer guy, but thanks to Seth Woolcock, the founder of In Between Media, I would say Busch Light is probably my favorite of the light beers. So I'm normally either drinking a Busch Light or some kind of apple beverage, a hard cider, maybe some Crown Apple on a good night. So in any case, Busch Light Apple comes out best of both worlds for me. Has the beer, not nearly as sweet as, you know, one of those hard ciders or something that can just get bogged down with so much sugar. But in any case, so they brought it back this summer, which of course was awesome because I only got one case of it last year, which was a little disappointing. You know, a little bit more than 30 cans would have been nice. So this year when they brought it back, they announced a promotion where they were going to do two. They called them Busch Light Apple Drops, where they were going to basically fly a helicopter branded with Busch Light Apple insignia and stuff like that, and just have this giant crate full of Busch Light Apple cases hanging off the bottom of it. And, you know, it was an invite-only event. If you, you know, retweeted stuff or replied on Twitter to Busch Light or made a Facebook comment or something, you'd be entered for an invite slot. And lo and behold, a few days in, I won one of those invite slots. And, they only had them in 2 locations. One was in Missouri. That's a little far for me in Pennsylvania. But one was in upstate New York, only a few hours away. Work has been pretty slow for me this summer, even though it was on a weekday. I figured, why not? This is going to be a cool story to tell. I'm going to go and make the drive. So this was toward the end of last month. I went and made the drive up. It was 6 hours about from Pittsburgh. The day before, I actually was able to stay over at my parents' house about halfway through, so that cut down on some drive time. Went up to, I believe the town was Poquog, New York. Really nice apple orchard up there, and they had a pretty cool setup. They had probably about 35 people there, some Busch PR people. The Busch guy from the commercials was there. That was pretty cool. Got to chat with him a little bit. Yeah, so
that's really cool.
Very cool event for sure. They gave us some free Busch Lights and Bushes, of course. We got some barbecue from a really good food truck called Handsome Devil. Apparently they had been on Chopped or one of the famous cooking shows. I don't remember, but they had one on that show. So very, very good barbecue. And then we got to watch the helicopter fly in, landed with a giant crate. They opened it up, just filled with cases of Busch Light Apple. Spectacular, pretty cool show. And then they brought all the cases over, and we got to try the first Busch Light apples of the summer, which was really cool. At the end, we got some swag. I got this hat. We got a tote bag, and we even got 2 free cases. Maybe not quite as much as I wanted, but free beer, I'll certainly take it for sure. So,
dude, free beer is free beer, man.
Exactly.
Free beer is the best beer.
Yeah, it tastes the best.
Yep. So then drove the whole 6 hours back home, went to work the next morning, and now enjoying every sip of the Busch Light apples.
Busch Light, if you're watching, just know we talk about Busch Light all the time, especially when Seth is on. It's his favorite beer.
For sure.
Yeah. And look at that graphic. I mean, how
isn't it? Oh man.
We're already ready. We're already ready.
We can loan you our graphic designer on occasion. Loan, you can't have him.
He's the best there is.
He really is the best there is. And he's also running the back end of the show. Shout out Third and Short. You were the man. And I can confirm that Steffi was our 1,000th follower, which is awesome. That's right. In between hit 1,000 follows today, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool milestone for a company that when I started a year ago, I think we had 50, maybe 50 followers. So
all I want to know is what took her so long.
That's a good question because I don't know. Probably oversight.
I think I was maybe in the 100 range. I was pretty early on, but
you were very early on.
I mean, come on, Steph. It took you till today, really?
Both throwing the smoke. I love it.
I was 1001, so I mean, she wasn't last.
They had you blocked until today.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so Connor,
Yo.
Elliot, let's talk about this beer a little bit. Tell us what you thought of it, what you think of it, what you enjoy about it.
I mean, so as we talked about, like Seth and I are like Busch Latte buddies, and so I mean, my daily driver when we're out at the bar, especially binge watching football or anything like that, is Busch Lattes. I mean, they just go down super smooth. No, it's just one of those things. It's next to drinking water, it goes right down easy. So when they were firing up an apple, I was like a little bit skeptical. I was like, man, just like Elliot said, I was like, man, is this going to be like a cider? Is it going to be like a sugar bomb? And it really isn't. I mean, and contrary to the way the can looks, like it's actually more like a green apple flavor. So it's got like a nice like balance to the normal lager that's in the can. So, and it's it's a modest alcohol level. So I mean, you don't get absolutely plowed. You can drink it all day. It's refreshing. Like I can't say enough. If Busch Light's out there listening though, I mean, maybe expand distribution so everybody can get to taste this because it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, we definitely don't have it out here in Colorado that I know of, which I guess I don't look that hard, but as far as I know. All right, Elliot, what do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, they do limit the distribution a little bit. There's only a certain amount of states, so that's really unfortunate. I think they'd certainly make a lot more money not only having it everywhere, but having it year-round. This will sell no matter what the weather is outside. But yeah, I mean, I echo all of Connor's points for sure. Like I said, normally I'm a big hard cider drinker, but sometimes they can just get real sweet. They definitely lean more toward sugar bombs, like an Angry Orchard or something. After a while, you can't sit there and drink them all day because they're just too sweet. It almost gets a little sickening at some point. So Busch Light Apple is truly the perfect blend of Busch Light with some apple flavor. So perfect daily drinker, like you were saying. And I'm going to enjoy the heck out of the 3 cases I have right now and hopefully find some more before it's done.
That's awesome. So, Bo, what are you drinking tonight, man, to celebrate?
So yeah, I kind of was like, oh, I'm gonna drink tequila, and I went to get to the Corlejo at Costco because I know the best prices there, and I found that the Corlejo only comes in a 1.75 liter, and it's a big, tall, skinny bottle. So
Yep.
literally, probably barely would have only even fit in my car because I mean, you have a tall bottle. I was like, there's no way this is fitting in my cabinet. So instead, I got the short, stubby bottle, 1.75 liter, but short, stubby bottle of Kirkland Signature. It's silver. I've been sipping on it already. It's pretty darn good too. So it's I kind of wish I'd gone with the añejo because it has more flavor. But yeah, I'll live with the silver. It's doing the job.
You know, people don't sleep on Kirkland. If you have a Kirkland that sells alcohol, we only have one around us. But dude, their booze, their in-house brand booze is good, man. Their premium vodka is like Grey Goose. It's so good.
Yeah, it's the same water source and the same employees that make Grey Goose make the French version of the Kirkland vodka, and then their American version's made by Sky, so you really can't mess it up. The best part about the tequila, I think they use the Fino brand, which is the same as Cielo.
Okay.
But it's just really good. There's the big silver bottle, but 1.75 liters was $22. So,
Wow. Yeah.
$22.
How do you beat that?
Dude, that's value, man. That is value for sure. So for anybody who missed it, apparently we're seeing in the chat a little bit that some people missed the announcement. Bo McBigtime, Mr. McBrayer over there, is going to be joining the DFS Golf Show as our full-time co-host, as well as joining in between. I can't even say my own company's name. In Between Media. As part of our family, and we could not be more excited for Bo to be on board with us. We are stoked, which is why we're celebrating with some tequila tonight. Because Bo and I love tequila. We have a shared love for Herradura, which was a little pricey for me.
How'd you pronounce it?
Herradura.
If you're gonna be moving down there,
I know.
The H is silent. It's a silent H, and you got to roll your R's.
Oh, I can't roll.
Herradura.
I can't roll the R. I can't roll. I'm trying to learn. So I'm also
Harry Dura sounds like a second baseman for the Phillies.
Oh, dude, totally. I love that. Harry Dura.
Would have gotten traded at some point this week, probably. I was going to say, too, just to throw a little bit of knowledge out. So if you've got a Blanco or a silver tequila, you're generally going to be somewhere between 0 to 12 months of aging. And contrary to popular belief, things like Cuervo are not tequilas. Like you want to make sure the label says 100% agave and Hecho de Mexico. Those are going to be your true tequilas. So when you're dealing with a Blanco, you're looking, again, about a minimum of a year aging on it. And then Bo alluded to Reposado. That's going to be a little bit different aging process, and you're going to be in excess of 12 months usually on that.
Yeah. Tequila is a new thing for me. Like, I wasn't big on tequila because all I really knew was Cuervo for the most part. And like Sauza and what's the like super well Juarez were the ones I had. And man, those are bad. Bad.
When you have the real stuff, it turns your whole life around.
Right. So I came to the table tonight with this bottle. It is a Maestro Dobel, and it is an añejo that we picked up at duty free on our way out of town when we were in Mexico. Unfortunately, the 1800 añejo that we fell in love with hardcore while we were there was too expensive for our taste at duty free. Not nearly as cheap as in town. But man, I gotta say, so I read up a little bit on this. This specific one is aged in Hungarian wood barrels, Hungarian oak barrels that have been used for bourbon previously. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting. This almost tastes like a whiskey, almost like an agave whiskey would be the best way to put it. I'm not a super like internationally certified taster man like Connor over there. So I'm just going to say that this is really, really good tequila.
That's all you need to qualify it with, really. Is it good or is it ain't?
Oh, it's good. It is an ain't. That's for sure. That's for sure. Elliot, do you like tequila?
I mean, I don't have it that much. I'm not a huge drinker for sure, but you guys are out there buying all the nice fancy ones. I'm still young. I'm still only 22. I'm drinking all that cheap stuff you guys are leaving on the shelves, honestly.
Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Some of my favorite bourbons,
there is.
No, not when you're young. It's okay. You got to cut your chops, man.
Yeah, but bourbon's different. Tequila, you're getting what you pay for. Bourbon, you can get a good bottle for $20, and then if you spend $100, it's not necessarily better. It's just made different.
In a fancier bottle.
Oh yeah, especially but tequila, you definitely get what you pay for. So I would say there's something wrong with leaving the cheap stuff, with getting the cheap stuff instead of going just up another tier, because it is really worth it with tequila.
Yeah, man, this is actually the first I've had of this tequila tonight. I'm blown away at how good it is. So,
well, with your añejo too, like you said, I mean, a lot of times you are going to get a lot more of the like American whiskey type flavors from it, like from the oak aging. And the other thing with añejos is you're somewhere between 1 to 3 years of aging in oak. And then if you get into the extra añejo, you're just outside of the 3-year. And you're going to get a lot oakier, a lot more probably familiar to the American palate, because it's gonna present a lot more like a whiskey or a bourbon will, a lot more vanilla, a lot more caramel. So, if that's like for me, a lot of times, because I'm not a huge tequila fan, I'll go with an extra añejo and kind of work my way backwards within like a family of brands and just kind of like almost reducing it down to get to like the stuff that is less American tasting to me. But if that makes sense,
it does
in a roundabout way.
It does. Man, I'd love talking booze with you guys. Oh, sorry, Jen. She's honey, you can come down here and get some if you want.
Yeah, we can get a cameo from some more of the IBT family.
Yeah, I don't think she really wants to be on a show tonight, so I don't think she's in the mood for that. But so
you didn't lock the door on her, though.
No. She can come down anytime she wants. So, I think we've talked enough spirits here for the last 20 minutes or so. Spirits, Bo joining the team, having Elliot on. Elliot, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're gonna, if you want to stay and talk golf, you're more than welcome.
You guys are the experts for sure, but it was nice to learn from you about the spirits. Next time, I'll save my money buying Busch Lights, and I'll leave the cheap tequila on the shelf for sure.
Awesome, man. All right, Elliot, have a good night. Real quick, if you're not familiar with Elliot, he does write for our fantasy NASCAR section for In Between Media. You can find him on Twitter at ehicks39. He's got a column that comes out every other week. And if you're into fantasy NASCAR and life stuff, he's your man. He knows his stuff. He's also on the Back Road, our fantasy NASCAR show. So, Elliot, thank you again for coming on, and we'll see you around, buddy.
See you, man.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, shall we get to the golf?
I'm just glad that Elliot didn't ask anything about NASCAR or anything, because I would have just looked like a deer in the headlights. I know nothing about it.
I have a NASCAR story. I could have at least shared a NASCAR story, but that's as far as I go.
I know who Jeff Gordon is.
I know of him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've seen him. I know that he does a voice on one of the Cars movies. I think it's Jeff Gorvette or something.
Man, those guys, though, those fantasy NASCAR guys, man, that's some crazy stuff. That's a lot of intricacy to that. You should definitely
sharp. They are sharp.
Sharp dudes.
All right, guys. Well, should we get into the Olympic golf?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
All right. So we're coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. We're at, let me see if I can screw this up, Kasumigaski Country Club. We're playing the East Course there. It's par 71, about 7,400 yards, give or take. It is a no-cut event. Kind of possible that we're going to have some weather. We got some tropical storms working, could become typhoons. I looked at the weather right before we came on. Chance of rain is pretty heavy almost every single day. We're talking 50% plus. So it's definitely going to rain. It's just right now the wind and stuff looks pretty tame. So if that stays down and it's just wet, I don't think that's a huge deal. It's probably mostly going to affect the putting surface. So we'll get into that in a minute. But the main defense on the course really is actually going to be that there's about high 60, low 70s amount of bunkers in play. Outside of that, fairways are fairly wide, fairly forgiving. It's super well manicured, almost to perfection. A lot of the guys are saying, which is kind of to be expected over in Japan. But with a course being in such pristine shape, I mean, everything is playing true, everything is playing fair. The Zoysia grass, which is what the fairways are, listened to some shows earlier, and I wasn't real familiar with how they play. I haven't played on a lot of Zoysia, but Zoysia actually like allows the ball to sit up quite a bit. So if you're in the fairway, you're almost sitting on like a little bit of a tee. Should make second shot pretty easy, pretty manageable. The greens are going to be bent grass, and from all the guys' interviews this afternoon, I mean, it's just rolling super true. So I think putting is going to be, as long as you can make a read, you should be good. Couple of things to keep in mind. All the par fives on here are pretty lengthy. There's a couple that are right around 600 yards. All the par threes are fairly lengthy. They're all over 200 yards. Par fours are kind of the opposite. We got a drivable par four. We've got a couple of par fours that are under 400. And really on the longer side, I think they're still under 500 is the longest par four. So not a whole lot of, those are going to be your scoring opportunities, I guess is what I'm saying. I do kind of see it becoming a little bit of a bomb and gouge, to be honest, because I don't think there's a lot of penalty for missing the fairway. And the other thing too is the green complexes. When this course was originally made, they actually used to have two positions for a lot of the approach shots. So you'd have two separate greens. And then when Fazio came in 2016 and redesigned it, kind of prepping for the Olympics, he actually combined a lot of those green complexes. So you have these enormous greens. That being said, like a lot of long putts, but I don't think like scrambling and like necessarily the like around the green type of shots are going to be that big a deal, because I think the greens are pretty damn easy to hit. So yeah, all of that kind of ties into, I think the scoring is going to be pretty low. I mean, I would guess that we're going to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 under, and it being a no cut event. I mean, even the guys that are tailing going into the weekend may make a pretty significant charge. I mean, you can have a really low day here, I think. So I wouldn't count anybody out until the medal ceremony.
Awesome. So what were you looking at as far as like your analytics and your stats?
So to be honest, we're flying pretty blind on this one. And as we get into the players too, there's a lot of people that like I may have heard of, but like it's really tough to kind of get enough information to compile it and make an educated decision on who to play. But the things that I did build into my model over on Fantasy National is I went with driving distance, because again, I think that having some length off the tee is going to be a major advantage. I looked at 3-putt avoidance too. Guys, essentially what that means is guys that are good at lag putting. So if you've got a long putt, getting close enough to make the second putt. I looked at shots gained approach. I look at that every week, because obviously most guys aren't going to be on in one. So we want to see what they're doing on their second shot. Birdie or better averages. I weighed that pretty heavy. Like I said, I think it's going to be low scoring. So I think you need guys that are going to score. And then the only time that I usually weigh this at all is with no cut events. I did take a pretty good look at DraftKings scoring, because like I said, you got guys that are going to play 4 rounds. So guys that score high on DraftKings, you're going to get more rounds out of them no matter what. So that's what you're kind of looking for. So those were the main things I looked at. I mixed in a couple of proximity ranges, things like that, just to try and get a better feel. But again, we're flying pretty blind on this one. So should be fun to watch.
Well, I mean, it's the Olympics, so it's the Olympics. I haven't watched a single second of any Olympics, but we don't have live TV, so and we have a 3-year-old.
Good luck.
If anything, that should make the Olympics more inclusive for you. They run all night while we're normally sleeping.
Yeah, we try and go to sleep though. So I'm just saying, during the day, man, no. That's why I do all my shows after he goes to bed for the most part, man. I can't stick Jen with that. That's just mean. Not the tail end of the night.
You're a good husband, Nate.
I try. I try my best. All right, guys, so let's get into the picks. We've got some new tiers, some Olympic-themed tiers this week. So our first tier this week is the gold tier. If you think you know why we named the tiers this way, just go ahead and say it in the chat. First one to get it right wins absolutely nothing.
Our undying love and adoration.
Yeah.
So gold tier is our normal tier 1, 9K and above. So I'm just going to get it out of the way, and not because he's my favorite golfer, but because he is actually my favorite this week. I really, really, really like Rory McIlroy, and I think everything is pointing to him having an uptick. He's rating out super well in the model. He's number 2 overall as far as what I weighted. And he's been playing sneaky well. And I think we kind of talked about this a few weeks ago, that I think people misinterpret Rory's results, and so they're quick to write him off. I mean, let's keep in mind that 6 events ago he won. So, I mean, it's not like it was a decade ago that this guy went out and won a golf tournament. And also, we're quick to forget that in June he was 7th in the U.S. Open. So it's not like Rory is playing bad. He's just not storming the field like people are expecting him to. And a couple of things that I kind of looked at that are trending up for him. It's pretty much every metric, like every shot game metric. He's actually gaining strokes week on week on week, with the exception of putting. And again, I think this week, I think some of that risk is mitigated because these greens are super true. They're going to be putting relatively slow, and they're huge. I mean, huge green complexes. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think you're going to have guys 3-putting and all that, but I think what Rory does well is a lot of times he's good at lag putting. So, if he's got a long putt, he's going to get close enough to knock it in on the second one. And I just, again, like where he's trending at. And he's also coming in, last I looked, at like sub 13% ownership, which in that top tier, it's just filthy chalk. Like Rory is the pivot play this week. That's crazy. That's where I'm sitting on Rory. I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off so that nobody could give me a hard time about him.
We still can. We just maybe we're less inclined to.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to give you a hard time. He's obviously a favorite of mine too, because you look at driving distance and guys that can exploit easy courses. A lot of these guys, they'll get on an easy course and they might not necessarily go on a birdie fest, but Rory's that guy where he doesn't play down to the course. He's going to go after it. He's going to play aggressive no matter where he is, and his driving distance and accuracy are phenomenal. And so you get him hitting shorter clubs into these greens, and it could be over quick. Like he might distance himself, because the rest of this field is a little top heavy, but you don't see a lot of like really big low scoring guys in the field for this. There's a handful of guys that can go low on occasion, but Rory's the only guy I really see that has done it recently and can do it at any time, especially internationally.
Yeah, and I think something too that a lot of people are kind of on Rory about is like his driving accuracy right now. And I went back and looked at his good drives gain metric over the last 6 rounds.
Bad.
No, it's not bad at all. As a matter of fact, in the U.S. Open, he gained 4 strokes. So I mean, in Wells Fargo where he won, it was another almost 5 strokes. So I think it's again people being overly critical of one of the world's best golfers. And I personally would love to see him come out and get that gold medal and just kind of prove everybody wrong. So I'm fired up on Rory.
At 10-3, and I can't believe his projected ownership is that low at 10-3, because I mean, one of my favorite golfers that doesn't necessarily fit the model, it's going to be super chalky, is Colin Morikawa. Is the top price on the board. And everybody's like, oh, he's from Japanese descent. I was like, he's still a Northern California kid who probably hasn't even been to Japan very often. And I was like, he grew up playing on California, Bermuda grass, most likely, at Poa annua if you're lucky. And so you're going to a completely foreign country with a very unique fairway grass. And he already had enough trouble with the fairway grass at the Open Championship before he caught fire. And that's why we had him as a favorite there, because he's such a great iron player. But this isn't his course to go really low. He's not that kind of guy. He's a steady Eddie, and then he gets hot, and his proximity to the holes is what sets him apart. I'm fading him because of ownership percentage, and of course he's the top price, which makes sense because he just won the Open Championship. But those are apples and oranges with the courses we're dealing with today versus last couple weeks ago. Yeah, I like Rory at the top tier. There's a couple other guys that I'm willing to spend up on that are that bomber mentality. Is like, I just want the guys that are going to have shorter clubs into these greens, because by percentage they're going to be closer to the holes if they're closer to the holes on their approach. It's just a simple fact they're easier clubs to hit into greens, especially when you're not familiar with a lot of the things that are going on there.
Yeah, and I think, so I'm kind of in on Morikawa, kind of not, just to touch on him quick. I mean, statistically, of course, he's rating out super well, but kind of to your point, like the course he just won on, it's not apples to apples. I do see him being one of those guys, though, kind of like Rory, that can just come out, play on any condition, any setup, whatever, and do well. If there's a knock on Morikawa, besides the price and the ownership, it's that I don't necessarily trust his putter. And I think, though the greens I think are going to be relatively easy and receptive, I still think you're going to have to be able to drain some putts. And it just sort of depends on which type of guy we get this week. So Busch apples and oranges, I love it.
Yeah, and before we go any further down the price, the very defined tiers here is you have a lot of high price guys, and then it just drops off a cliff. So you have to be really careful about who you plug in at the top of the price range. You're only going to be able to afford maybe 2 of those guys, and then you have to sprinkle in a lot of mids here because it's just once you have 3 of those top tier guys, you can't afford anybody that you've ever heard of.
No, and I think a couple of the guys that we were kind of on going into the show, Victor Hovland, Joaquin Niemann, both. I think a lot of people are on them, and I think to your point, it's partially because you can literally start a lineup with the 2 of them and still have between $7,000 and like 7,500 left to spend on the rest of your guys, which keeps you out of no man's land with a bunch of these guys that, may very well be are very accomplished golfers in their own right, but like that we just are literally throwing darts at. Like you can look them up left and right, you can get a feel for who they are, but I mean, in terms of playing in a high talent field like this, under this kind of pressure on a course that not a lot of people are familiar with, it really is a crapshoot down below 7.
You're telling me.
I do want to bring up Hideki though before we move on. So Hideki, a lot of people may not be familiar with Hideki back when he was like junior Japanese tour or amateur Japanese tour, but he has won a tournament at this course. Now, it was before the redesign. It was a lifetime ago, but he's from Japan, knows the course, has arguably played it more times than anybody else, understands weather conditions in Japan and moisture conditions, things like that. So I do think that there is some value in Hideki. My major holdup with Hideki, and you almost watch him gag away the Masters. I don't think he holds up real well under pressure, and there's going to be a lot of it. And the other thing too is Hideki is just notoriously not a great putter. So roll the dice and trust some course history a little bit, because I think he'll give you 4 solid days. But do I think he's getting the gold medal? I think that might be a stretch.
Yeah, and think about pressure. The event is already enough pressure, but having the event in your backyard with all the Japanese media is no joke. They're going to be down his throat every minute of every day leading up to his first round, all the way through his final round. And like you said, we've seen him shake. We've seen his hands tremor when things buckle down, and this might be the most pressure he's ever been under in his entire life. Representing his home country in the Olympics at a course that he may or may not be familiar with having a ton of success with. You win a junior championship, that's a whole different tee box that you're playing from. You said it was before the redesign from Fazio. That's irrelevant. That's ancient history, is not relevant to today. And I'm kind of thinking that a lot of people are going to be on him because he is the only Japanese player in the field, and he's the only one with some familiarity with it. Like, he's the only guy I'm really going to see as having that home course advantage, but everybody's going to see that same thing on the surface, and superficially it's going to drive up ownership to where I really don't want it.
Yeah, and the price is prohibitive. I mean, right now he's trending. It looks like he's going to be around 14-15%, which is not awful. But
I think it'll end up being higher than that. I think we're going to be closer to 20 by the time we tee off.
Yeah, I would think so too, because there's some guys right now that are trending way ahead of where they should be. And I think as people kind of dial that back and start to do a little more research going into it, I think some of these dudes fall off and you get some pivots. But yeah, I mean, I by no means hate Hideki, but again, you're looking at a top tier that's difficult to really gauge where people are at. I do think somebody that I would normally put in our dart throw category that we're not doing tonight is Captain America, Patrick Reed. I would never rule out Patrick Reed. I don't care about the stats. I don't care about his turnaround time. I don't care that he's still flying over the ocean to get there right this minute. Patrick Reed loves hoisting the flag and will come to play. So I'm not afraid to play Patrick Reed, but take it with a grain of salt because he's not going to have seen the course. I mean, he's coming off of playing a tournament, jumping on a plane, being an alternate. I mean, so he's not going to be super well rested, but man, if somebody can come out and just grind it, it's going to be Reed.
I'm looking to play Reed in a lot of my tournament builds because his price is really nice. And like you said, this is the same reason I played Poulter at the Open Championship and did successfully play Poulter. Or no, he's not on anybody's radar, but it's home country. And for it's somebody like that, the competition, the team competition representing your country, it means a lot to Patrick Reed. And he plays up to that. And the same thing with some of the Europeans that play in the Ryder Cup really well. After they've been a corpse on the European Tour the last year, they'll show up to the Ryder Cup and just beat our brakes off in match play. Patrick Reed's that same kind of guy. He's going to come in with his stars and stripes, playing like garbage for the last year and a half, and come into Japan with red eyes, hungover, and he's gonna shoot a 66 the first day, and you're like, oh, okay.
John Daly it.
Yeah. Oh no, he's exactly that kind of character. You get those Southern boys that don't give a crap about anything, and they're going to come out and then play golf, and they play field golf. And field golf is different because you can roll out of bed and your swing is the same. Everything is just you're within yourself. And there's a lot to be said where you can ignore the stats and know that certain kinds of personalities are going to be cut out for that kind of pressure.
Yeah. And Reed is from Houston, so that's another thing to think about too. With the temperatures going to be in the low to mid 90s and the humidity level and that coastal type of climate, like Reed is more equipped to deal with the elements than a lot of these guys are. Not to say they don't play these types of tournaments all year long, but I mean, he lives in it. So I'm coming on to Reed and I'm coming on to him a little late, but I really think that might be a good play. So.
Right.
I love it. So guys, are we ready to move on to the silver? The silver tier?
Silver tier.
The silver tier. This is 9K to 7K. And dude, I don't recognize any of these pictures, so I'm going to let you guys talk.
I'm super impressed with Short right now, to be honest. Like, I was surprised. I thought these were going to be shadow men. I can't believe he found pictures of these guys. Yeah, so our silver tier is our normal tier 2, 9K down to the 7K range. Kicking it off for me, I really like Guido Migliotti.
Migliozzi.
Yeah. So, so Guido's been playing really well. I like where he's trending at. He's coming in at least number 9 overall in my model. We're looking at scores well in DK. He's in the top 15. Birdies are better gains, same deal. Driving distance, he's in the top 20. And I really like the tee to green game and the approach game. He's in the top 10. And then we've got strokes game putting that he's just lights out too. So all of the stats across the board are green. He's in the top 20 for everything in this field. Now, we do have a smaller sample size to that. Really just looking at the U.S. Open, the Travelers, and the Open Championship. And he did miss the cut at the Open Championship, but prior to 13 at the Travelers, and he was number 4 at the U.S. Open. So the guy can play. And I think a lot of people are going to be on Higo, and so I like the pivot to Guido.
Yeah, Higo's the really volatile pick that, I mean, he can go low anytime, but he's also just liable to blow up and be out of it in the instant. So, yeah, I like him as a tournament play, but yeah, you're right about Guido. Guido's been hot, and when Guido's hot, he goes low, and I like that momentum he's carrying into it. My favorite from this tier is actually right at the very top, and it's Cameron Smith, Mr. Mullet from Australia. This guy he's got the flair, he's got the personality, but he's got the game to back it up. And he got there early. Australians really do get along with. They go to Japan a lot. That's one of the most popular places for Australian people to travel is in Eastern Asia. And so it's really cool to see somebody like that embraced immediately in Tokyo. Cameron Smith he's going to be the kind of guy that's not going to be shaken by any kind of pressure, and I love his game. And I don't know if he's the longest hitter, but he drives the ball well. You always see him in the total driving where it's power and accuracy combined. He's always at the top of that metric, and I just love his game. He comes to play and he gets hot, and when he gets hot like he's been lately, I'm happy to see it in the Olympics because those Aussies, they're going to be partying.
Well, yeah, and to your point, no, he's not the longest hitter. He's 31st in the field for driving distance. However, he's number 3 in the field for DK points scored over the last 36 rounds. So dude comes to play, comes to score, third in birdie or better gains. So he is kind of the archetype we're looking for. We want a guy that if we give him 4 rounds, he's going to score. And it's something to keep in mind when you're playing DFS golf is a lot of people get really focused on, is this guy going to win? And I'm kind of in the camp that's like, I don't care if he wins. If he outscores his placement points by, 10x, then I think we got a good day on our hands. Oh, yeah. So I'm with you. I like Cam Smith for all the reasons you said. And he's, outside of the actual driving distance, the guy is solid. So that's a good play. Yeah. I like a couple of oddballs like Sebastian Munoz I'm kind of on, and then Antoine Rosner I actually like a lot too. And Rosner, a little bit of a gut play, but the one thing that I like is he's really solid on approach. So knowing that this is going to be a second shot golf course on a lot of these holes, I really kind of like that he's going to be close. He's going to have the opportunity to birdie a lot. And really, I mean, number 6 in the field for shots gained approach. I mean, you can't ignore numbers like that amongst these guys. And so Rosner at 7,600, I think, is a really, really solid play. Gives you a little bit of room to double up at the top, like we talked about. And then Munoz is right there at 7,700, and he's green across the board too. He's in the top 22 for every stat we looked at. So again, just another little kind of pivot play that give you a little bit of leverage, give you a little bit of room to stack up top. So just a couple guys to look at.
Yeah, and I noticed you had Jazz Jenna Watananon kind of pretty high on your metrics out of India or out of Thailand, I believe. And he's a good player. I've seen a couple of his rounds on the Euro Tour. I'm not on Jazz as much. I'm kind of more on Matthias Schwab out of Austria. He's got a more solid, well-rounded game than Jazz does. Jazz is not a long driver. He's not going to. He's going to get eaten alive especially if it's wet. Like if you're getting rain and a 600-yard par 5, Jazz is going to be taking 4 shots to get to that green.
I was just looking at the picture I sent you. I'm not high on Jazz. I had him highlighted accidentally.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's no way he fit the driving distance metric that was weighted like you had it.
No, hell no.
Yeah, so,
I was like, what? Yeah. What is Bo talking about?
Yeah, Matthias Schwab is the guy at 7K that I'm going to be playing.
I do like Schwab.
Long driver. He's a solid putter. He's a streaky putter. I like guys that can pair up a skill or a pair of skills that match the course well. And he's going to be hitting shorter clubs in. And I mean, at 7K, you're looking at somebody who's just going to make the cut. And his cut percentage is very high, which I like. I like those stable guys that are going to play well enough to be around for even a non-cut event. He's going to be in it. He's not going to be out of contention at any point.
Yeah, and looking at some of the stats on him, like I do like the tee to green game. I like the approach game for the most part. Putting leaves a lot to be desired, but I think again with these, I think putting's going to be a little easier. I just think it's whether or not you can lag up there and be close. And he doesn't really look like he's going to have to worry about lag putting. I mean, his approach game, at least for his price, has been pretty good. So.
That's because he's hitting wedges into everything. The guy bombs it all.
Yeah, so I mean that middle tier, like probably the biggest name that I think we both kind of liked a little bit was Corey Connors. And Corey Connors was somebody everybody and their brother was on kind of mid-season, and then he kind of fell off a little bit. But if Corey Connors really has a knock against him overall, it's that he sucks at putting. I mean, he's just really inconsistent. But the rest of the game is super solid. Great approach game, great proximity. DK points, he scores really well. Scores a lot of birdies. We get some birdie streaks out of him. The price is high enough too that I kind of think that we may have some lower ownership on him at the end of the week. Right now he's high. I mean, he's about 20%, but I think taper off as people start to kind of really put pen to paper and build these things out. Because if you're putting Corey Connors in there, he's one of your top 2 on your team. So you're really having to make a decision. Do I trust that Corey Connors is going to be in the top 10? And I do, but I think a lot of people will come off of that.
Yeah, I'm not on Connors because he sucks at putting. I mean, I like the kid, I like his game, but I don't think that, especially if you don't start as a good putter, you get a lot of pressure on Sunday. It's gonna be tough for him, because we've seen him fold like a lawn chair in final rounds, where like the putting becomes more about mental than just a stroke. Like you're not just trying to make a putt, you're trying to hold yourself upright while you're trying to putt. It's a lot of things to be said about how do you handle your weakest point in your game when the chips are down. And I haven't seen it from Connors yet. And so he might be still developing that part of his game, that mental aspect, that killer instinct. And I don't think the Olympics is where we're going to find it from him.
Yeah, that's a pretty big stage to try and figure out your game and the mental side of it, especially. Oh, just the whole world's watching. No big deal.
Yeah, 3 billion people are watching you make this putt or not.
Sounds like or not.
Let's be honest, though. He's Canadian, so how much pressure is really on him to bring a medal home? I mean, come on.
Yeah. All he can do is say sorry.
Sorry. Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's kind of the mid tier, and I know there's not a lot of like home run hitters in there, but I think the guys that we're talking about actually over a 4-day no cut event. I mean, again, I weighted the scoring heavy in there. So these are guys that score. They may do it unconventionally. They may not look the prettiest, but like they're going to get you some points, and that's what you need. So,
all right, guys, are we ready to move on to the bronze tier, 7K and below?
Yeah, let's do it. Dude, Short again coming through clutch. Where's our shadow figure?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this range, actually my favorite play, and it is strictly based on driving distance, is Ryan Fox. This dude absolutely crushes golf balls. I mean, he is by far number 1 in the field for driving distance, and I'm fairly certain he would have rated there even with Bryson in the field. So this is a guy that disintegrates balls. That being said, he doesn't have a whole lot else going for him, but I think where we're going to have a lot of forgiveness is good driving distance, good accuracy with the driver. So he's going to have shorter approach shots, giant greens. If you're on into 2 putts, you're in par or under every single time. So I just kind of like the way it sets up for him. And I love the price and I love the ownership. I mean, $6,900 for a guy that is going to outdrive everybody 4 days in a row. I mean, he's bound to find a couple of good rounds in there and score some points for us. So that's probably my favorite one, 7K and below.
I'm kind of going a little deeper. I have a small connection to South America, where I've actually seen Fabrizio Zanotti from Paraguay. He's one of the most fun names to say. I mean, he has an Italian name. There's a lot of Italian immigrants in South America. But
who is this guy?
Fabrizio Zanotti.
I'll find him. Keep going.
Yeah. So he's just a solid all-around player. He's been playing on all kinds of mini tours. He actually plays well in these sorts of events where he's not daunted by travel. He's been all over the world. He plays well everywhere he goes, and he doesn't really have those blow-up kinds of things. So if I'm looking for, hey, I'm only spending $6,400 on my salary, and I want a very good chance for that guy to make the cut, because I want my big expensive guys to do the scoring. Like there's no cut here, but I want that steady guy at the lower price because they're more likely to hit value. And so Zanotti is one of the guys that I targeted at the bottom of the price range. And then a bunch of the other guys, I was like, I've never heard of this guy, or I look up their stats and I'm just like, ew, that's gross. Like, how does this guy even make the Olympics? But
apparently they'll take anybody.
Well, the German team, before we wrap it up, the German team actually has a couple little sleepers fitting in there where you don't hear a lot about them, but when you look up, kind of like you find the deepest reaches of the internet that actually have their stats, they're pretty darn good players. And so, I mean, you can find values that aren't owned by anybody by doing that. And Zanotti's the guy I'm going to be spending down for. But yeah, the rest of these guys, you could pretty much throw a dart and hope for the best, especially if you're spending up on like 2 or 3 of the top price guys, then you're going to be forced to get one of those guys.
Yeah, and I'm with you. They're all a little bit odd. To back up your Fabrizio here, he does have good tee to green game, good approach. He's good around the green. He's flat on putting, so if he drops a couple of putts, he's right there. So yeah, I mean that's not a bad deep one. And then I was going to mention, that one of the dude's names from Germany is like, what is it? Something. I got to look it up now. I just lost it. I had it. It sounds like a euphemism for a penis. It's hilarious.
Leave it to a German.
Yeah, it's something like that. Is it Kiefer or it's Hurley Long.
That's what it is. Yeah. So plug Hurley Long in.
Yeah, just because you want to root for the guy, I'm rooting for Long. Yeah, when you do the JA, the German, yeah, Long.
Yeah.
Das is real good.
Yeah, that's his good.
Yeah, and then down below, guys' names that you'll recognize that actually are worth taking a look at. Anaban Lahiri is down there. He's been known to have some streaks where he's decent. I like him in a no-cut event. Sepp Straka, people were super high on him kind of mid-season. He's another guy that can hit the ball a little ways, can hit it straight, can catch fire. So there's some people down there that are worth a look at, especially if you're trying to stack 1, 2, 3 guys from the top. And then I kind of got onto it by accident, but the Adria Arnaus from Spain, I just kind of happened to look and see who was filling in for Rom, which it's not actually him. He was playing before, but kind of in looking at the guy, he's actually a pretty decent golfer. And his ownership is next to nothing. And he's $6,600. So, if you're looking for somebody kind of weird and off the beaten path, that I was actually kind of surprised with the numbers I was looking at. So he might not be a bad one to throw a couple of darts at, especially in a GPP. And you're getting 4 rounds out of him, so he might throw some numbers up for you.
Yep. Yeah, I think the challenge with this event is just building that all 6 guys under the salary cap, because you have so many really expensive guys that everybody's heard of and that are going to have a lot of ownership. And then just filling in those dart throws to get yourself into the cap, because I found it really challenging to even leave salary on the table. Like I was building it out where I was leaving either 1,000 or I was 1,000 over, and it was like, okay, this is crazy. So I think the winners of some of these tournaments are going to have a lot of salary left over, where they just kind of threw caution to the wind and got 2 studs and a bunch of crazy dart throws, and that's what they rolled with. So I think that's what's going to end up happening, because it's a limited field. You're going to have a lot of chalk.
Yeah, and if you're not feeling super good on DraftKings this week, I mean, there's no shame in playing like the 25 cent and maxing it out, or the 50 cent and maxing it out, and really throwing some darts. I mean, there's still some good money in there. Would I go and max out the $5 or the $10? Probably not. It's too variant this week. But I really do think that some of these gambles are going to pay off, and with a week with no cut, I mean, kind of to Bo's point, you can really throw darts. I mean, some of these guys are going to show up even 1 or 2 days, and it's going to be the difference and get you some points from somebody who plays flat all week. So,
right.
So yeah, I think that pretty much sums up what we're looking at in terms of players for the week.
So I've got a question for both of you, because it's the Olympics. I'm going to change the dart throw to a javelin throw. Who's your one super deep stash javelin throw guy?
I'll let Bo go first. I know you're going to ask me. You got one handy?
I already put mine out there. Fabrizio Zanotti. He's the guy I'm going to be throwing my dart on from Paraguay.
You and I should have some kind of head-to-head bet. I'll take Hurley Long. I'll take Hurley Long.
I love it.
You're hoping you'll be saying Dankeschön.
Who's your pick to win? My pick to win, hands down, is Rory. Rory's taking the gold.
Mine too.
I mean, it just for the sake of not agreeing with you, because I also feel like it's going to be Rory. It's gonna be Victor Hovland is going to be my second choice. I'll have some shares of him. I think he's going to have some ownership that's going to be high, but I think in a limited field, no cut event, you're going to have to eat some chalk. You're just going to have to. It's inevitable. But if you do pick a guy who can make a lot of birdies like Hovland, where there isn't a penalty because he cannot drive it in the fairway, it's just not in his nature to find fairways. He might even be able to find these ones. And with his length off the tee, if he gets hot, he could very easily go low enough to win the gold medal.
Awesome.
Love it.
I'm picking Rory.
I'm all in. Yeah.
I mean, there's a story about Rory McIlroy where his dad bet somebody that he'd win the British Open before his 25th birthday, and he ended up winning the 25th. He ended up winning the British Open. What was it, like a week before his 25th birthday or something crazy? And his dad won like $200,000 on this bet from this guy. Yeah. And since then, I'm just like, I don't know, man. Him and Jordan Spieth are two people that I just root for like crazy. I like the young success. And Phil, obviously. Always Phil. Phil, if you're watching, we would love to have you on the show. I was going to DM you on Twitter, but your DMs are closed, so I don't really know where to go from here.
Instagram. He's very interactive
down because of you.
Yeah. No, I mean, as a kid who grew up playing golf left-handed, obviously, lefty he's one of my all-time favorites. And I met him back when I was 13 at the Pebble Beach program. And he's every bit of a great person as he personifies on TV. Just a great dude. And even Vijay Singh, who he was playing with, is a great guy. And you kind of like, oh, he's a cranky old man from Fiji. It's like, no, he's just a very quiet individual that he's so nice. Like he'll crack a joke with just like complete monotone, and you laugh your butt off because Vijay Singh's just like, you're like, no, not expecting any kind of jokes. And he'll just drop a one-liner, and you're like, oh!
I love that. Man, VJ, I loved him too. Now we're talking the years that I actually watched a shoot ton of golf. It's a family show.
A crap load.
A crap load. So, guys, I think that kind of rounds out the show for the most part. I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in. Everybody who tuned in for our big announcement. I want to thank Connor for, as always, being my lovely co-host, and Bo, man, like I seriously couldn't be more stoked. Boom. Cheers, buddy.
There it is.
Yeah. If you've never had Bo's hot sauce, I mean, come on, what are you even doing with your life? It's the best.
I mean, I'm biased, but I agree with Nate. It's the best hot sauce on the planet.
One of these days, I'm going to take a picture and post on social media all of my collection of hot sauces. I have a ton from all over the place. Yours is the best. I still have one I have a little bit of one that Third made for me. Third and Short, our back end guy, our graphics guy, our amazing friend. His is almost as good as yours, but it's not quite. Yours is just like,
sorry, Short.
I don't know how you do it, man. But so shout out Bo, shout out In Between Media, Connor, Bo. It's been a pleasure. We will see y'all in 2 weeks.
See you, boys. Cheers.
Cheers.